Hello and welcome to Events Uncovered TV. I'm your host, Silvia Pellegrini, and joining me today is Darren Kerr. Hello and good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, from Hong Kong. I'm fantastic. My name's Darren Kerr, and I'm the founder and executive director for FACTOR168 Creative Event Company.
Could you please quickly just tell us how you started?
Well, like most people of my vintage, starting in the events world, I didn't really start in the events world. I started off as a lecturer at a university, worked in media, worked through the film industry, and found that the regular income that corporate events and business communications offered was pretty appealing. So, and found myself coming through the production side. These days I work within the experiential marketing side, and particularly the area that involves showcraft.
Okay, so I understand that amongst other things, you specialize in strategic and tactical design, experiential marketing, and inspired team leadership. Now, let's start from the inspired team leadership. What's this and what do you do?
Inspired team leadership, it falls into many different categories really, but in practical sense, it's about presenting yourself as a leader and helping people be the best that they can. And being consistent and authentic are really key things for being a good leader. But in terms of leadership side, it's more about people being comfortable in having a voice, having their own voice, and being able to bring value or bring something to the proverbial table, if you will. So that leadership side comes in two different formats for our business. Leadership in the form of taking on a marketing campaign, a project, and providing leadership and almost serving as a lightning rod to ensure that a business communication objective is achieved. The other thing that we do is that we go into businesses and we help them seed a creative dimension or culture within their organisation, and that sits with the leadership in the traditional sense, the executive leadership, but also sits with the leadership of the individual employees. So yeah, it's layered, but it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
So what do your clients hope to achieve?
Well, ultimately, all of them have the same goal. That is, they want to grow their business. They want to make money. They want to develop a business, a product, a service that is attractive for their marketplace. And grow that business. So, without sounding terribly crass, but really, it is business communications. It's about making money.
Could you please give us 3 practical tips on how you help them achieve those goals?
Well, within an experiential marketing space, the 3 key areas that we work with is the strategic, the creative, and the tactical. The strategic is really important. It helps us to clarify exactly what it is that the client's objective is in putting on a campaign, what it is that they hope to achieve. And in doing that, that provides us with both direction, but also helps us to focus on the best way and to not only develop the campaign, but who we're developing it for, and what we're hoping the audience will take away from that. Which kind of leads into the second section, which is the creative element. And the creative element is the element that we're best known for, but without the strategic, very difficult to do good strong creative that really resonates with people. In terms of the creative side, and we were talking prior to the interview starting, is about the power of storytelling, and it's about really creating an experience for guests, for delegates, for the audience that they can relate to, that is meaningful to them, and that they can have some form of engagement. So that creative element is hugely important. And of course, the last one is tactical. And by tactical, I mean actually delivering the event. And when many people look at the event industry, they tend to measure or tend to assess the event industry based off that tactical dimension, which is the physical delivery of the event. Liaising with venues and with caterers, with production houses, with the AV and design decor and registration and all those kind of lots of moving widgets that make an event work. And it's hugely important. It's the realisation of the creative and the strategic. So in many ways, those three elements, the strategic, the creative and the tactical, are very much reliant on each other. And if you don't have all three in place, you tend not to have a terribly successful event. So that's our mission, is with clients, is to ensure that we have strategic in place, that we have very strong creative that that's going to be attractive and meaningful for guests. And obviously the tactical side, you can have great strategy and creative, but if the caterers don't turn up or the AV doesn't work, then it's just talk, really, isn't it?
You would help them how to find out who the audience are, who they're targeting.
Absolutely.
How to tell the story, and how to put it all together. So from the practical side, so anything that goes into events. So those three things need to combine in order for your client to, for any client to have a successful events, but for you to help them to have their successful events, you will guide them through these three steps.
Absolutely. It's not unlike if you have a child of your own, or perhaps you have a nephew or niece, and you want to read them a bedtime story.
Okay.
The strategic side is very much about picking the right story that is appropriate for the audience, which is, say, a 5-year-old. And the creative side is not just reading the story, but putting lots of character and inflection and dramatic delivery into that story, so it's entertaining.
So it's grabbing their attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And the tactical side, of course, is you've got to present that story in the right setting, preferably when they're going to bed, and being able to tell that story in such a way that you have a good delivery and you get a good result out of that, which is hopefully they go to sleep.
Yes, brilliant. The second speciality I mentioned was experiential marketing. Is this a method for creating an emotional and rational response from consumers, from clients, or from attendees?
Yeah, look, I mean, experiential marketing's been around for a long time now. It's it's kind of a grab-all phrase in many ways. One of the things that we're finding is that experiential marketing was about creating a live event experience, and the emphasis was on experience, hence experiential. But what we're finding actually in the last couple of years, and certainly in the last 12 to 24 months, is this huge convergence between in-person live events or communication with people and online, through social media channels and things of that sort. And so you're kind of getting this huge convergence of that. And so experiential marketing is much more than just live events, and yet it's very much about communication through experience. And that's really powerful stuff. But to create an experience, yes, you do need to address some of the rational elements in terms of your content, but ultimately it's very emotional. And that's really where good experiential marketing, works well, is that it has a strong rational basis, i.e. the strategic side, and then it has a very strong emotional dimension. And that's certainly an area that we work very strongly in, is that creating an experience.
How do you target the emotional side?
Well, look, there is no real science to it. Maybe there is. I'm not aware of it. There is. It's about understanding that your collection of audience members, be it 20 individuals, high net worth individuals, or perhaps it's 2,000 congressional delegates or 200 corporate clients. Ultimately, you can throw lots of numbers around, but it's a collection of individuals. And individuals all have one common element, and that is that they have the heart of the spirit. And so in creating something that engages, you've really got to sort of design your event program in a way that really plays to and connects with that emotional dimension that people have. We all laugh, we all cry, we all have, great joys and frustrations. And I think one of the key things that really defines people, certainly within that business communication space, is most people are desperate to be entertained, whether it's just a straight-out entertainment or whether it's a form of edutainment. But also they're curious. People like to physically and mentally engage. They like to discover, and they like to be taken on a journey. And so you kind of need to take all those different sort of elements that are very kind of very difficult to sort of pin down and start building a program based on, is this meaningful? Is this authentic? Is it engaging? Yeah.
So they're not going to fall asleep on the chair just looking at some kind of presenter. You got to throw in other bits so that they, apart from being awake, they can actually interact. They can actually.
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to say, Sylvia, that if the audience has fallen asleep, you have failed on an epic scale. Look, it is not unlike storytelling, or whether it's a book or say a film. The films are very much based off the 3-act concept, where you have a challenge, then you have the second act, which is all about, how does the hero meet those challenges and overcome them, and that's the third act is the resolution of that, the success of those challenges. And I think when you're putting together a program, whether it's the bigger event program, or whether it's even just individual speakers, we do a lot of coaching for presenters, and one of the things that we work with them is to create a sense of rhythm within their story, a bit of light and shade. And the fact that you don't need to actually, people are really smart. You don't need to present everything to them as a done thing. You can help them to fill in the blanks and to participate within that sort of that experience. So yeah, absolutely, it is very much about rhythm.
So
in terms of
flow. Yes,
absolutely.
So at the beginning you mentioned the audience, live audience, so in a live event and online, and they're merging. So but how do you if it's an event online, how do you tell the story for an event online? It's not the same, if I walk into a room and I see different colors and smells or even the way that I can actually interact, I can go to places. How do you do that online? I'm
going to be a bit sort of old school here and a bit controversial, I guess, Sylvia, because the online element is not instead of the event. It's an enhancement.
Okay.
There's lots of talk of hybrid events where you do run both the online and in-person, as a parallel, equally weighted experience. I can't see that. I don't see that. It's, the whole power of an event and the attraction of an event is you can only get that experience by attending in person. And for the very reasons that you've mentioned, the 5 senses. And in fact, I add the 6th sense, which is the connection of individual people that adds to those, the other pre-existing 5 senses. You can only ever get that in person. And that's why, as event professionals, it's super important that we give a huge amount of considered thought in terms of our program design to make sure that that event is something that you can't just easily replicate by not attending in person. You know, and part of that is creating legacy events, you know, annual events that builds on that success and that IP and that culture sort of ownership. But you know, in terms of that convergence of online and in person, it is, in my mind, it's very much an enhancement. So it's about people that are already attending and enhancing their conversation or their dialogue through online communities or engaging with things such as Pinterest or Instagram are two particular platforms that we've found huge success in, where, you know, I mentioned previously about good event successes where people feel that they have some form of ownership and participation within the event. And there's nothing that says that, such as taking your own photographs, for example, and posting them and sharing them. Yeah. Same with commentary. I think other social channels like, you know, Twitter and Facebook, you know, have varied success depending on the event and the event scale. You know, some are much better as pre-event community building rather than actually within the event itself. But in terms of that sort of hybrid, or that running a parallel event online, look, I almost think in some ways you'd be better off actually videotaping the live event and then representing it or repackaging it as a webinar where people can revisit that, or those people that couldn't attend the event can still capture some of that element. There's been varying degrees. I've been to a lot of events, we've produced a lot of events where we've attempted to have a lot more live online presence and interaction. And to be honest, even with the technology and the capabilities that are now quite sophisticated, it ends up becoming a bit of a burden, really. You know, we talked just earlier about flow, and when you're having to cater for, you know, other groups that are beaming in and watching and interacting with them, and then contending with the technology side, it's almost like throwing big speed bumps, you know, or obstacles within the rest of the audience that are participating. So I actually would promote it too much, other than as enhancement to people that are already there.
So if he helps maybe before and to build excitement, or if he helps afterwards to continue the conversation and maybe try to get people who couldn't attend to come to the next one with testimonials, or then yes. But you're saying it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to have the two events, one online and one live, going at the same time, because the people who are there would experience something completely different from the people who are just watching it from home, or are just reading about it in a tweet, or they can't have the full experience.
Without a doubt. Look, a lot of people have different opinions on this, and obviously people that make their living out of providing that technology support would have very strong arguments otherwise. And look, it also depends. We were just talking about picking the right book for your audience for storybook at night. But obviously groups such as IT groups, for example, from the IT industry. It's a different sort of demographic, and it's a different, contextually it's very different. So that parallel event as opposed to convergence is probably going to be a little bit more successful. But say it's for an auto dealership or something of that sort, where perhaps the technology is not as strong or pervasive, then I would kind of tend to wave that off.
So, strategic and tactical design. What is the most important thing to consider?
Well, it's a two-parter, but it's the same word. Why? The host, the person that's commissioning the event, the client, needs to ask themselves the very simple question: why are we doing it? In terms of the target audience, or the guests, the attendees, they ask the same question: why? Why attend? I'm so time poor. Why would I take time out of my life to attend this event? And I think that without sounding a bit flippant about it, but why is the key word for both parties. And as event professionals, we need to help the client be able to confidently answer, well, why are they doing it? That's the strategic side. In terms of the client, the guest side, why are they attending it? Well, as we just talked about, it's something that they will get something that is of genuine value to them, both personally and perhaps collectively as a group, that they could only get by attending. If not, they can Wikipedia it. They can Google it. They can. So to me, the question is a simple three-letter word: why.
So what can they actually get out of attending the event? What is in for them? Yeah. What they can. So how much input as the client has in this in the strategical design of it?
Well, I like to say 100%. They should be fully engaged within the strategic side, because it actually goes to the question of why they're doing it, but also it leads to both the creative and the tactical feed off that strategic side. Unfortunately, some clients don't, or sometimes they just don't know. Sometimes it's one of those things where it's part of the marketing mix and they feel obliged to do it. Maybe it's come from head office. We've had some clients that, such as large petroleum companies that have that are incredibly strategically orientated, and we've had other clients that not so much. Multi-tiered marketing businesses. We're talking the Mary Kays, the Amways, the Mickey Prunes, companies like that, New Skin, that it's the only opportunity they'll have to engage their staff, their sales staff. And so often it is that edutainment focus where they want to both increase the knowledge of their staff about the products and services, but equally they want to acknowledge, reward and incentivise the staff to sell more of that product.
If a client comes to you and they don't know why they're actually doing an event, what would you ask? How would you find out?
Well, I would literally ask them exactly that. Why are you doing the event? What do you hope to achieve from this event? Ultimately, they all have that one goal, is they want the audience to have some emotional connection, some form of engagement through the event process that leads them to do something. People stage an event because they want a particular action at the end of that.
So a client would come to you, you would find the reason why they want to do this event. You will target the right audience. You will tell a story, obviously doing all the bits that you need to do, from venues to audio to caterer. And while you're telling the story, you're trying to connect with the audience so that at the end of the event, we'll have a call for action, and they will do something that is actually your first reason why you did the event. Is that about right?
That's pretty spot on.
You have actually produced and consulted for events all over the world. What is the common, if there is a common mistake or assumption that you came across from event planner or from a client point of view?
Well, I think there's three common mistakes that event professionals and those commissioning events make, and they are not understanding the strategic dimension of the event that we've just discussed, why they're doing the event and how they're going to go about. The other thing is the resource. Both the event professional and the commissioning client may not place the right value within the tactical mix So, for example, a lot of clients are very comfortable with catering, and there's no surprise to that. We all eat. We've all been to restaurants, and so I've never met a client that doesn't like to get involved in the food tasting. And don't get me wrong, if you don't cater appropriately, you don't cater well, you'll have some very unhappy guests. But just because you're comfortable with that doesn't mean that you should put all of your proverbial eggs in that one basket. AV production is an area, content, where some clients and event professionals are a lot less comfortable with, and so they will spend less time and effort and less resource in that area. And in fact, in terms of creating a powerful business experience, that's really the key area. The third point, and it's kind of a mission critical one, and that is time. It is part of resource, but I separate that out because it's not a question of money. It's a question of sanity, I think. If you don't provide a huge amount of lead-in time, you get a rushed project. People cut corners and things are not done well. We talked previously about people. Do they go to an experience? That question of why should I go to that experience? You really only get one or two chances with guests. They have events happen all the time now, and so it's not like business professionals are don't have lots of competing invitations. And so if you put on an event that has been rushed and ill thought out, you've wasted your money. You may as well have just cut a check to everyone and just sent it off to them rather than invite them, because they'll turn up to the event and have a really poor experience. And the next time you send an invitation out, most people will go, no, I'm not going to do that. The other thing is too is that with presenters just on time is that they a lot of good professional presenters, as per entertainment acts, will always rehearse. I have never in 20 years come across a presenter or an entertainment act that is not good that didn't insist on a rehearsal. And an event professional should always insist on rehearsals. Those that don't always end in tears. Just to close out on that, a shorter event is a better event without question. Shorter, more condensed, more impactful events are really effective. And part of that, I think, is because of that social media convergence that we were talking about earlier. People's attention span has just diminished.
So I've got just a couple of questions on this. So the first one is, you mentioned about the AV. So everybody would concentrate on the caterer, for example, because they do enjoy and because they do know about food and they know they have the preferences, but not about AV. Is it because they don't know much?
Look, absolutely. Look, I'm fortunate because I came through an AV production background. Most event professionals, by and large, don't these days. They tend to come through the marketing stream, if you will. So they're much more comfortable with the strategic side and the project management side. So it's important that an event professional understands the process. How long does it take to develop lighting states? The sort of information that a lighting director or designer would need to develop those states.
The second question is about timing. You said that you should take your time to plan an event. So what would be an ideal time to organize a conference, for example?
Well, some of the people that I work with would actually, think that I would say, well, as long as possible. But actually not. A week or two out is insanely short. And you're definitely not going to get your T's crossed or your I's dotted, as it were. It depends on the complexity and the scale of the project, but certainly a couple of weeks. And also it comes down to the decision-making process from the client side. I have some clients that put a huge amount of trust and faith in what I do, and they really don't get terribly involved in the the details of the show. And I mean, that's been urged, but it's a quick process of doing that, whereas other clients will kind of micromanage it. And the more meetings you have, the longer it takes. And I'm not a huge fan of meetings. I have some clients here in Hong Kong and in Singapore that they gauge the success of an event pre-production by how many meetings they have. By and large, having meetings for the sake of it is not terribly productive. I think being able to answer all those strategic elements at the start and being able to have good vendors that you trust and a good event producer, executive producer in place, you shouldn't have that many meetings. So there is no real answer to how long is enough time. I'm going to punt and I'm going to say 6 weeks.
6 weeks. So, and then you mentioned about the length of an actual event. So if it lasts from 8 until 2 is too long. So, there are some events that last few days.
Depends on the actual the structure of the event. If a large part of that event is a group dancing, and having fun and almost generating their own program, then a more lengthy period is kind of okay. But realistically, if you had, say, 600 people attending a gala dinner, with an awards component, and there's going to be, not everyone's going to dance, and so you're kind of catering for a small group rather than the majority. And I think that's always important to be mindful of ensuring that you're not polarising or disenfranchising parts of your audience. In terms of the multi-day events, if it's a regional or an international event where people are travelling from great distances, then it makes sense to have multi-day because there is already a huge investment in place in people getting out there. If it is a local event, there is no value in that whatsoever. I would actually be looking at the program and working out what is really adding value and really being of a genuine offer. A good example of that, I guess, is the industry events, ITB Asia and AIM, and events like that in this part of the world, where there is a lot of networking, meet and greet built into it, and you've got to strike a really good balance between the educational element, the networking element, and also allowing people that space to be able to develop, their own experience or their own area within that event area. There's no upside to anyone by doing a rushed, under-resourced event. It's certainly not good for the event professional. It's certainly not good for the client commissioning the event, and it certainly isn't good to any of those guests that have been, induced into attending and regretting it.
I just got 2 more questions for you. The first one is, what do you think an event organizer should do in order to be commissioned for jobs worldwide? Is there a way?
So I need you to expand on the question a little. Are they looking at positioning themselves to global work? Or in terms of positioning yourself for that, I think it comes down to, there is no answer to it really, but it comes down to being positioned in having a very good, trusted relationship with the client. That's the first thing. But also you kind of need to actually have the experience and the network to be able to work internationally comfortably. It comes down to much more individual expertise and being able to plug into networks. So when I do work in London or say over in San Francisco, it's it would be a very small team from us, but a very strong local partner. And I think part of that is also being transparent in your costings, otherwise it becomes quite prohibitive.
So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, look, they can get in touch with me a number of different ways. They can go to our website, www.factor168 or one word.com. they can look me up, Darren J. Kerr, on LinkedIn. We're also on Twitter at Factor168. Ping me, Darren at factor168.com is my email.
So, thank you so much, Darren, for joining me today and for sharing your great knowledge with us. I really, really appreciate it.
It was my distinct pleasure. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you. So thank you for tuning into today's episode. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my blog at www.eventsuncoveredtv/blog and to my podcast Events Uncovered on iTunes. Please comment, like and share this interview. Thank you and take care.